Hello and welcome to the very first episode of The Ultimate Sacrifice, or at least the first episode here on YouTube. Actually, this program's had quite a long life on radio. If you want to find out that information and who I am and all this other good stuff, stay tuned until after the story we're going to tell today, and you can find out all those details in footnotes. Today, we are going to look at our first Medal of Honor winner on D-Day itself. I decided for our first season, we're going to do about 13 episodes a season, we're going to take a look at the men who received the Medal of Honor on D-Day and then men who received the Medal of Honor as they went through the Normandy campaign. And the first one is a man named Carlton W. Barrett. Carlton Barrett was born on November 24th, 1919 in Fulton, New York, to Lester and Olive Barrett. He had two older siblings, Madeline and Roland, the latter of whom joined the military and served during World War II as well. You can see this picture of part of the town that he was born in. Probably looked like a lot of towns at that period of time. Barrett dropped out of high school in 1940, shortly before his 21st birthday. He decided to enlist in the Army, and he was assigned to the 18th Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. There's the Big Red One's flag, the 1st Infantry Division. You see the bloody one there. It, of course, has the honor of first place in the Army, and if you were assigned to the 1st Infantry Division in World War II, you were assigned to a lot of combat. Within a year and a half of Barrett joining the Army, the United States had joined the war, and Barrett was in the thick of it. He took part in the North Africa campaign and then the Sicilian campaign, and then he and the rest of the 1st Division was sent off to England, where they were to train and prepare for the most important invasion of the European theater, and that is Normandy in France, so that the Allies could once again get themselves onto the mainland and deal with the Germans. Now, this map of D-Day here I love because it's a little busy, but it shows you all the things that you really need to know. It shows you where the German infantry divisions were, where their HQs were, where all of the Allied troops coming over landed or the paratroopers landed, and the important points you need to look at and think about when you study D-Day. So this is a great map. If you've never seen it before, you might want to pause the video and just check it out. Now, when you're awarded the Medal of Honor, you receive a citation, and the citation explains why the Army or the Marines or the Navy or the Air Force or whoever has decided to give you this honor. And here is the citation for Barrett. Quote, "For gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, on D-Day, June 6, 1944, in the vicinity of Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer, France." Now, let me just bump into this quote here and say that I don't speak French. I don't speak German. I don't speak anything but English, and I do a pretty poor job of that. So forgive me for misinterpreted, mispronounced words. But you can see on this map here that Saint-Laurent-sur-Mer is just off of Omaha Beach, so right in the thick of things. Back to the citation. On the morning of D-Day, Private Barrett, landing in the face of extremely heavy enemy fire, was forced to wade ashore through neck-deep water. Disregarding the personal danger, he returned to the surf again and again to assist his floundering comrades and to save them from drowning. Refusing to remain pinned down by the intense barrage of small arms and mortar fire that was being poured at the landing points, Barrett worked with fierce determination and saved many lives by carrying casualties to an evacuation boat lying offshore. In addition to his assigned mission as a guide, he carried dispatches the length of the fire-swept beach, assisted the wounded, and calmed the shocked. He arose as a leader in the stress of the occasion. His coolness and his dauntless, daring courage, while constantly risking his own life during a period of many hours, had an inestimable effect upon his comrades and is in keeping with the highest traditions of the U.S. Army. Close quote. Now, in the modern world, say World War I, and especially World War II forward, most of the citations are very accurate and very complete. You go back before World War I, they're not so much that way. But here's an example where they did miss something, because what the citation doesn't tell you is that Barrett himself was wounded while saving the lives of his comrades, and not just once. He was shot or hit with shrapnel in both hips and the left leg. It was not until a fourth wound to his foot, shrapnel shattering the bones, it was not until then that he allowed himself to be evacuated off the beach. When Barrett was asked about his actions later on that great day, he never retold his story. He would always say, quote, "It was after that that I knew what a hero really is. They're all heroes for just being there, especially those who never came back. Memorial Day and D-Day are good days to remember them," unquote. Now, I've been privileged to know a few Medal of Honor winners, and they all say that last part, that the real heroes are the ones who never came home. So Barrett was sent back to the United States for treatment. He spent about 5 months in hospitals due to his injuries and 2 bouts of malaria that he suffered. When he was finally discharged in October of 1944, he was sent right back to the European theater. Barrett received the Medal of Honor in Paris on November 17th, 1944, after he was promoted to corporal. I always laugh when I see that. I mean, here's this guy, look what he did. He gets the highest of all honors, and they only bump him from private to corporal. Come on. Well, anyway, the medal was given to him by Army General John C.H. Lee, who commanded the European Communication Zone. There's a picture of the general. General Lee was probably the most hated Allied general, not by the Germans, but by the rest of the Allied generals. Particularly, Patton couldn't stand him. Bradley was very unhappy with him, and I don't think Ike was either. What his job was to move supplies from the beaches or the ports when we got them and get them to the front, to the, where they need to be used by the soldiers. And it was during the breakout from Normandy and the dash across France, when every truck was needed to carry gasoline forward to Patton's troops and other troops, that Lee decided to take a bunch of trucks out of service to move his headquarters from Normandy to Paris, so that he could get all the nice hotels. He had the pick of them all, and he settled in his big, ever-growing headquarters, and he did serve out the war. Now, Barrett, as we mentioned earlier, was one of 4 Medal of Honor recipients on June 6, 1944. 2 of those men survived the day, but one died just a month later, and so Barrett was the only D-Day Medal of Honor recipient to survive the war and tell his story. And yet, he didn't tell his story because he knew it wasn't about him anyway. It was all about serving your country, loving your country, and the men that he fought with. In July 1945, shortly after the war ended in Europe, Barrett was discharged from the Army. According to a 1945 Brooklyn Daily Eagle article, he took a job with the Department of Internal Revenue, now of course known as the Internal Revenue Service, in the Jackson Heights neighborhood of Queens, New York, where his aunt and uncle lived. However, civilian life must not have suited him very well, because he re-enlisted in the Army in May of 1947. That same year, he married his wife, Josephine, who had also served in the war in the Women's Army's Auxiliary Corps, and the pair went on to have 2 daughters, Kathleen and Sharon. Barrett was stationed for a time in Germany before the family moved to the Los Angeles area so he could serve at the Army and Air Force recruiting station in Culver City. There's a couple of shots there of what Culver City looked like at that time. And the family chose, as so many did, to put down roots in California, remaining there when Barrett was discharged in June of 1963 as a technical sergeant. In later years, Barrett moved to a senior living facility in Hawthorne, California, and according to a Kansas City Times newspaper article, his right leg had to be amputated in 1984 as a result of a war injury. And just 2 years later, March 3rd, 1986, at the California Veterans Home in Yountville, California, his life came to an end. His obituary in the Napa Valley Register said he died of pneumonia and heart failure after a long illness. And Barrett is buried today in the Napa Valley Memorial Gardens in nearby Napa, California. Barrett's memory lives on in the Army and in his hometown. In Fulton on June 6, 2023, that day was officially dubbed Corporal William Barrett Day. And Army enthusiasts can see his medal in person at a display at the 1st Division Museum in Kankakee in Wheaton, Illinois. What an amazing story. A humble, quiet man who lived his life out quietly, never tried to take advantage of being, a Medal of Honor winner, especially the only surviving one on D-Day. What a great example for you and me and all of us to serve to the best of our ability, to give all we have to give, and to do so quietly and as a servant, not as a celebrity. And now, let's check some footnotes. Hey everybody, welcome to Footnotes. This is Louie, and I'm glad that you're sticking with us for just a couple of minutes. I'll try to make this brief, but I am a pastor, so sometimes I tend to go on at the mouth a little bit, but I was ordained into the ministry now just over 50 years ago. That's right, 50. I know some of you look at this face and think, wow, it looks like it's been longer, but nope, just 50. I am a graduate of what was then called Pacific Christian College. It is now called Hope International University. And I served God for all those years in different churches, doing different things, going overseas. And in 2015, here in Parker, I was asked to do some work to sub for a man named Bill Risen. Now, Bill's a friend of mine. He's a veteran, Army veteran, loves veterans, tried to support and help them all that he can. He's a great patriot. And he had been doing this short form show called The Ultimate Sacrifice on our local radio station, KLPZ. Now, I am a lowly civilian. I've never served in the military, but my father was a World War II vet. He joined the Marine Corps, was in the 4th Battalion of the Marine Raiders for the first couple years of the war. Then when the Marine Corps shut the Raiders down, he joined the 4th Marine Regiment, was part of that in the liberation of Guam, and then, of course, that was folded into the 6th Marine Division for the Okinawa campaign, and then he was also present at Yokohama. They were part of the occupation of Japan and the Japanese surrender. I have his surrender ceremony certificate that he received, and then he came home and started a family, and then joined the Marine Reserve to make a little extra money, and he ended up being called up for Korea. And when he got home from that, then I came along a little while after that. So that's a little bit of my military history in terms of my love for, respect for the military. I grew up hearing World War II vets everywhere talk a little bit about their service, just the good stories, and started reading and studying, and here we are today. Now, Bill came back, took the show back over, and I had a blast with it, but, I was happy to let Bill take it back over, and so I thought, well, that's fun. However, the station's owner, Keith Douglas, and his wife, Juanita, really enjoyed the show, and they asked me if I'd be interested in doing another short-form show. And I remember standing there talking to Keith about it, and I said, sure, what would you like me to do? And here's the embarrassing part. It was him, not me, the pastor. It was him, the radio guy, not the pastor, who came up with the idea of telling Bible stories. And it's pretty embarrassing that I didn't think of it, but he did, and I said I'd love to do it. And so in 2016, with a little help from a good friend of mine who gave me the name, Tales from the Script, it was born. By the way, I'm pretty sure she wants to remain anonymous, but if you'd like credit, I will be happy to give you the credit you deserve. The kicker to all this is that Bill, a couple years after that, had to move on, and so Keith asked if I'd like to take The Ultimate Sacrifice back over. And so I ended up with 2 shows. Now, that lasted until 2024 when Keith and Juanita sold the station, and it had to be shut down. And so the end of my first run with Tales from the Script and The Ultimate Sacrifice was there, but the end is not yet. Now, it's taken me a lot longer than I wanted it to, or I thought it would, but these 2 shows are back once again, and this time, Lord willing, we're going to be bigger and hopefully better than ever before. And this time, we're also doing it in seasons, so I can get a break now and then. So what I hope to do is to do 1 season of 13 weeks this year, 2025, and maybe a couple of extras toward the end of the year, and kind of reevaluate everything, maybe make some changes or whatever. And then starting in 2026, I hope to do 3 seasons of, like I said, about 13 weeks each with a month off in between. Now, whether I can hack that schedule, I don't know, because video, as you probably know, is more work than audio, but we'll see how everything works out. And I'm going to do my best and try my hardest, as I always have with these ultimate sacrifice stories, to be accurate. There are lots of other channels where you can get lots of other military history here on YouTube, and some of them focus mainly, if not exclusively, on Medal of Honor winners. And I've watched some of them, and I appreciate all the hard work that goes into it. But I will say this, I have noticed that a few of them are a little sensationalistic about it, that they report things that probably actually never really happened. The thing is, when you have these men and women do the incredible things they do, in our military, and then the ones that are given the Medal of Honor, well, these guys are amazing people, and there's a lot of mythology that can sort of creep in around what they did. And you have to do a little bit of digging to kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, particularly a couple of them, which will somewhere down the line I plan on covering, where there's been a lot of this because there was such an amazing situation. Because I think that the plain truth, things that can be verified, that's amazing enough. We don't need to add anything, and we certainly don't want to subtract anything either. So I'm going to do my best to bring you accurate, historically solid material every week here on The Ultimate Sacrifice. And so that's my pledge to you and to those that have made that ultimate sacrifice, because we owe them so much. And the very least we can do is get the story as straight as we can, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. As far as footnotes goes, it'll be here to answer questions, to maybe share books or material for you to look at. And I'm not sure if once we get rolling, we'll do this every week, but maybe just every once in a while. Who knows? We'll find out as we go along, because remember, we're experimenting. So please subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed the video, like it, please, and leave a comment. Let me know what you think, what's good, what's bad, whatever, and I'll definitely take in that advice and seriously consider it. So until next time, take care. God bless you.